Today we are reviewing the incredible Tobacco Honey by Guerlain. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the best releases in the fragrance world in the last 2 years. And I think for me, I can be a little bit biased because I absolutely love sweet, denser fragrances and I love the note of tobacco. So when we think of fragrances like Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille, anything that has a similar scent profile to that, I'm going to fall in love with. So in my opinion, Tobacco Honey is one of the best fragrance releases in the last 2 years. And today we are going to talk about how fantastic this fragrance is. So the opening of Tobacco Honey is the most realistic honey note I've ever experienced in a fragrance. Now, if we think of some other fragrances with a note of honey in, like Le Male Elixir, Guerlain Back to Black, for example, they have honey in there and you can kind of sense a sweet, vanillic, airy smell, but you wouldn't say they necessarily smell like you're opening a jar of golden honey and smelling the inside of that glass jar. But the opening of Tobacco Honey smells exactly like that. It's incredibly photorealistic and very artistic. I imagine making an accord that smells like realistic honey is very difficult, and that's why this is the only fragrance I've tried to date that has a photorealistic honey smell. Now, you need to ask yourself, would you want to smell like honey? Because, of course, it can be a good thing and a bad thing. Liking the smell of honey is one thing, but wanting to smell like it is something completely different. Now, of course, it doesn't just smell like honey. We have also tobacco in here as well. We have tobacco and actually many other notes. So the opening is just honey, a very sweet and delicate, almost airy honey. It's not really kind of thick and resinous. It's airy and delicate. Now, as it dries down, you do get the tobacco. Tobacco, again, is an accord, so it's lots of different raw materials used to mimic the smell of tobacco. So it's quite woody, it's spicy, it's a little bit smoky, and it's almost like a tale of opposites you have here, because you have the sweet, delicate honey mixed with this kind of raw, woody, spicy smokiness from tobacco. So definitely a tale of opposites. And we also have spices from cloves and also hints of vanilla as well. Tobacco Honey reminds me of something that Guerlain would do with his fragrances, especially like the old style Guerlain scents. So like Back to Black, for example, that's a very sweet and dense fragrance and does have some similar qualities to Tobacco Honey that we have here. I love fragrances that make me feel a certain way, and that's what I think is the most enjoyable part of a fragrance. So a fragrance can make you feel that you're on a summer vacation, like a really beautiful citrus fragrance. It can make you feel really confident, like a fragrance that smells ultra expensive and masculine, and also it can make you feel really warm and cozy, a fragrance that is gourmand and sweet. So Tobacco Honey does make me feel really luxurious and expensive because it has this aura of quality about it, and we're going to get onto price later on in the video. It is, of course, a very expensive fragrance, but it does have this kind of feel of quality and expense to it, so you do feel very luxurious when wearing it. When should we wear Tobacco Honey? Of course, you can wear a fragrance anytime you want. This is just my opinion of when I think this would suit. I think this suits really well as a night out scent, and that's actually when I wear this scent. About 2 months ago, we had a reunion of my friends. About 9 of us all met in a bar together, and I wore Tobacco Honey. I think it was in late February, so it's still quite cold outside. That's when this really shines, by the way. So I wore this on that evening, and every single one of my friends, when I hugged them, commented me on how well I smelt. So by default, that has made this my most complimented fragrance for a day or an evening. I think on my skin, this just works really well. It really radiates off my skin, and for that reason, I wouldn't wear this casually. I don't think wearing this to work would be very suitable. However, if it's a really cold day in the winter and you want something that's going to really warm you up and a fragrance that makes you feel cozy, this is a great fragrance to wear because the honey note has a really warming aspect to it. But I think this shines really well on a night out. So how is the performance? The performance on here is fantastic. On my skin, like I said, it radiated all night long, and on the clothes, if you if you spray it on a jacket or a hoodie or whatever you're wearing, it's going to really latch onto clothing and it will last a very long time. I think nobody who tries this will have an issue with the performance. I think it's going to be a really strong performer for almost anyone. The quality of ingredients in here feel really high quality, and I think it's a fragrance that's going to just latch onto people's skin. Now, the projection might change person to person, but I think in terms of the fragrance lasting power on skin and clothes, I think it will last a long time for everyone. So some alternatives. Now, the most likely or the most common alternative to this would be Tobacco Vanille by Tom Ford. That's the fragrance that I initially thought of when I smelt Tobacco Honey for the first time. Now, there are some very similar notes in here, of course. We have tobacco, we have vanilla, and we have cloves. Cloves is a really spicy and challenging note. I have a raw material of clove in my perfume material collection, and it's a very, very strong note. I think you need like a tiny bit in a fragrance formula to really make a big difference. Now, I find the clove in Tobacco Vanille to be much stronger, so it's a lot spicier. Tobacco Vanille is a lot spicier than Tobacco Honey, and also the vanilla in Tobacco Vanille is much more pronounced, whereas here you've got a tiny bit of vanilla, but the sweetness comes from that honey note, which we don't have in Tobacco Vanille. I also find the tobacco note in Tobacco Vanille to be more dusty, whereas it's a bit more smooth, woody, and a little bit smokier in Tobacco Honey. Do I like it? I absolutely love this fragrance. It might even be better than Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille at the minute. I need to do a comparison actually, because I've got a 2016 bottle of Tobacco Vanille in my personal collection, which I just saved for myself because it's the old formulation and it is much denser and heavier than the newer formulation of Tobacco Vanille. I need to compare those two together. But in terms of the new Tom Ford Tobacco Vanille, the newer batches, I actually think this is better. And that moves us on to the price. The price is very expensive for this. I think 100ml costs close to £300, and if you buy the 200ml, which this is, it's around 400 and something pound, 430, something like that. It's very expensive. Now, I can't stand here and say it's worth the price, because I think when we judge a price in a fragrance, and that's why I hate kind of talking about prices in fragrances. Firstly, I have no idea how much it actually costs to make this. Secondly, it all depends on your income, your expenditure, what you enjoy, how much spare money have you got to spend on fragrances. If you buy a fragrance that's really expensive, but you get 2 years, 5 years, whatever, of enjoyment from it, if it's something you wear just to special occasions, then that's worth the money, isn't it? If it creates memories for you, then it doesn't matter how much you spend. If you can afford it and it's part of your kind of spare income, it doesn't matter how much you spend. So really, it's hard to judge price. It does seem quite expensive for a fragrance. So in that regard, I would say it's a very expensive fragrance, and you shouldn't be blind buying anything unless you've got the spare money to do so, and you've sampled it, and you know you love it. Rating. I think this is a 9 out of 10 because it just smells fantastic. Not very versatile in my opinion. Not that that matters really. It's a fragrance to wear to a situation, and I wouldn't wear this really in the warm weather. This is really cold weather. Even going on a night out in the summer, probably wouldn't reach for this because it's just going to be, I think it's just too sweet for the warmer weather, especially when it's kind of summer and it's humid. But colder weather, this is going to shine, and it is absolutely fantastic. Maybe I'll take it down to 8 out of 10. I think the price is just slightly too much. 8 out of 10 for Guerlain Tobacco Honey. Now, I want to ask you, when would you wear a fragrance like this? So a fragrance that smells of realistic honey with a woody, smoky tobacco note. When would you choose to wear this kind of fragrance? Have you tried this, or have you tried Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille? When did you like to wear them? I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not blind buy Tobacco Honey because of the price. Make sure you sample this when you can and let me know what you think. And please do let me know, when do you wear this kind of fragrance? Do you reserve it for special occasions? Do you reserve it for the wintertime? Or do you think Tobacco Honey is an all year round signature scent worthy fragrance? See you soon.